Good morning, everyone. I hope you all had a good week last week, and I hope you also have a good week this week. This week, we're going to be learning about social emotional development of infants. So, last week we talked about brain development and intellectual development, and so now we're going to talk about social emotional development, and that comes hand in hand with brain development and intellectual development. And for the next couple weeks, we're going to be focusing on social, emotional, brain, and intellectual development through the ages of children. We're just starting with infants. So, social development, what is it? Social development is the process of learning to interact with others and express oneself to others. So, it's all about our social skills and developing those social skills. So, healthy social development, you show tolerance for others, you communicate well, and you listen to different points of view. So, the way that we interact with others all comes from how we developed socially when we were kids. Emotional development is the process of learning to recognize and express one's feelings to establish one's identity as a unique person. So, all about understanding and learning to recognize and express our emotions. So, healthy emotional development, you're self confident, you handle stress, and you show empathy. I think social emotional development is the hard one because intellectual development, you learn things and it's the process in which your brain develops, but social emotional, you have a lot of impact on this, and it's something that you face throughout your whole life. I know for myself, you're always trying to become a better person socially and emotionally, and I think that's something you kind of try and fix or try and modify throughout your life, more so than intellectual development. I think that you either have it or you don't sometimes, and you just learn how you learn best. But for social emotional development, you can kind of hone those skills as you grow older. So social and emotional development go hand in hand because how we interact with others depends on how we see ourselves, which interacting with others is social development, and our own development is emotional development, being content with yourself. So it begins at birth. So social emotional development is influenced by the bond we form with our parents, the atmosphere of the home, and the temperament of the child. And we're going to talk about all of these. So first and foremost is the bond you have with your parents. And so this comes from physical contact and forming something called attachment. And babies have a basic need for physical contact. They want to be held, they want to be cuddled, they want to be rocked, and they want to feel like you're near them. And physical contact forms attachment. And we're going to be looking at different attachment theorists. In one of this week's assignments, you're going to be looking at different theorists and their look on attachment and how it affects social emotional development. So one of the theorists that we're not going to look at in our assignment, I'm going to talk about right now, and it's Harry Harlow, and he did a study with monkeys. That's what he's known for. And the monkeys, the mom monkeys, were made of chicken wire and soft cloth, and the baby monkeys were taken care of by them. So the babies would be held with the bottle in the hand of the wire monkey. And attachment requires more than physical contact. It needs interaction. So babies need lots of love. And one thing that they found when they did this monkey study is that monkeys preferred the mom monkeys that were made from soft cloth, that felt soft, that kind of was more comforting. And so the love that babies need, they need touch, they need real love, and they need learning opportunities. And brains are 20 to 30% smaller than average if you don't have that physical touch, that love, and those learning opportunities. Your physical needs can be met, but no emotional or social care. So for these monkeys, their brains were 20 to 30% smaller than average just by getting the physical contact, feeling the soft cloth, being fed. But they were getting no emotional or social care because a wire monkey can't interact socially or emotionally. And so those babies develop 20 to 30% smaller. So although we have physical needs and we want these needs to be met, and we think that's important, it's also important to note that we need emotional and social care as well in order to fully develop properly. So, failure to thrive. Failure to thrive is a term used to describe when a baby does not grow or develop properly. And it could have failure to thrive due to lack of love and attention, or it could also become unattached. So if a baby fails to thrive, they have lack of love and attention, then they can become unattached to their caregivers. So attitudes are developed through how their needs are met, sense of security versus difficulty building trust. And so babies, when their needs are met physically, emotionally, and socially, they develop a sense of security. They feel secure. They feel confident. They have a positive, outlook on life. But when babies' physical needs aren't met, or their emotional needs aren't met, or their social needs aren't met, they have a difficulty building trust. Or if your schedule was really off. Babies work on a schedule. So if you have a parent who takes care of your physical needs in routine and gives you love and emotions and interacts with you, you're going to have a sense of security and a belief that the world is good. But if you don't have routine and your physical needs are met at random times and your sleep schedule is different and sometimes your parents are loving and sometimes they're not and they don't really interact with you, then you're going to have a difficulty building trust. And so feelings are contagious. So if you have a caregiver who's stressed or anxious or mad or worried, those feelings are going to go into the baby. So you need to be calm and loving and caring so that those feelings are the ones that the baby is picking up on. So there's 3 types of babies. So this is kind of involved in the temperament. We're going to go further into temperament later, but this is the first beginning way to classify babies. So there's easy babies, there's difficult babies, and there's slow to warm babies. So easy babies are about 40% of babies. They have a positive disposition. They're always in a good mood. They don't really get fussy, but when they do, it's mild, and they know how to calm themselves down. They eat and sleep on schedule, so it doesn't take long for the parents to create that schedule. They're curious, they're adaptable, and they're even-tempered. So those are the babies that if you're the first one, it makes parents want to have another. Then we have difficult babies. This is only 10% of babies. So they have a more negative disposition. They're restless. They are just always fussy. They may be colicky, which we're going to talk about later what colicky is. They're loud, they're intense, and it's really hard to soothe them when they're having these fussy fits. They're light sleepers, so when you put them down, you want to leave them down. They're not a baby that you could take in the car with you when they're sleeping or go shopping with when they're sleeping. They require lots of attention and they're slow to adapt. So new things are going to be hard. It's going to take a lot of effort to change them into something new. Like when you start feeding them different foods or when you stop having naps during the day and stuff like that. It's going to take a while for them to adjust. Then we have slow to warm babies, and those are 15% of babies. So they're inactive babies. They exhibit calm reactions, so whenever they're hungry or they're discomforted, they don't cry like a difficult baby would. They just are kind of calm all the time. They're shy, and they're really aware of their surroundings. So they're always looking, they're always seeing what's around them, and this can make them overstimulated, and they will turn away a lot. You also might notice that they withdrawal and they can adapt, but it just takes a longer time for them to adapt because since they're so aware of their surroundings and overly stimulated, they just need to take it all in. So 35% of babies don't fit into any category. They could have a combination of all 3 traits. And then there's goodness of fit, so that's talking about temperament and environment, and we're going to talk about what temperament is. So how we talked about like failure to thrive, when babies aren't given the right needs to thrive because it's all about how the parents treat them. There's goodness of fit, and that kind of is how good they fit in each category, and based on their temperament and their environment, it would determine those. And then differences between boys and girls. So you notice with babies in these categories, boys and girls there's lots of differences. It's not the genders. It's boys are typically one category, girls are typically another. It's usually not boys and girls in the same one. Boys are known to be the loud, crazy, cryy babies. Girls are known to be the soft, soothing, maybe slow to warm and easy babies, and boys are known to be slow to warm or difficult babies. And parents play differently with boys and girls. They typically tend to be rougher, or like you're not rough with a baby, but they throw their boy baby, or they might not be as gentle and caring as they are with a girl baby, just kind of social dispositions. So now we're going to talk about temperament. And a baby's temperament is completely individual, just like our social and emotional development is individual because we all experience things differently. We're all born differently. This is kind of the nature of ourselves. We are all born with a temperament, and then how our parents and our environment shape us can either intensify that temperament or it can help our temperament. So there's 9 different types of temperaments. There's intensity, persistence, sensitivity, perceptiveness, adaptability, regularity, energy, first reaction, and mood. And we're going to talk about each of them. So intensity, how strong or weak a child's responses to events or others are. So a high intense baby has deep and powerful responses, like they are going to cry a lot. A less intense baby's not going to cry a lot. So intense children are often loud. So intensity, kind of think about crying. If you're a really intense baby, you're going to cry a lot, have really strong reactions. Less intense baby, you're just going to be calm, cool, and collected. Persistent. So it's determined to complete an action. So a persistent baby is upset if they can't complete something they started. They're unwilling to give up. They don't want to give up. They don't want to move on. They want to finish what they started. Less persistent child is persuaded into beginning a new activity, and they take no for an answer. So when they're told to stop, we're going to move on, they will. Sensitivity. So that's strong reactions to feelings. A highly sensitive child might be a fussy eater or bothered by sound, sights, and smells. And less sensitive, just accept everything. They'll eat everything. They'll cuddle with any blanket. They love all smells and sounds. But sensitive kid is like one who fireworks might be too hard for them, or a fire engine, and yeah, like we said, fussy eaters, so they're only going to eat certain things. So perceptiveness, they're very aware of their surroundings. So a highly perceptive child is aware of their surroundings, distracted easily, and has a hard time following directions. But a less perceptive child can handle a lot of things at once. They're not aware of the world around them. They're not focused on every little thing. A highly perceptive child might be like, oh, there was a car driving by, mom's talking to me, ooh, there's a bottle in that bag, oh, I smell something funny. A less perceptive child is just going to kind of live in the moment and not really take note of everything that's around them. Then we have adaptability, so adjusting to changes. If a kid is highly adaptable, they're not bothered by surprises. So less adaptable, you want to continue doing an activity you focused on, you resist change, and you dislike surprises. So this one is kind of like our persistence. So if you're high persistent, you don't want to give up on anything. But for adaptability, if you're low adaptability, then you don't want to change things. So they're opposites. So highly adaptable children are like less perceptive children. So some of these categories, you could look at a kid and be like, oh, they're really perceptive, so they're going to be less adaptable. Or they're less perceptive, so they're going to be highly adaptable. So they're going to be opposites in some categories. So like I said, our highly adaptable kids, they're not bothered by surprises and they adjust to changes easily. Our less adaptable kids, they want to continue doing an activity that they're focused on, they resist change, and they don't like surprises. Then we have regularity. Highly regular babies follow strong patterns and schedules. They eat, sleep, nap all at the same time. They're cool with it, and if they don't meet the routine, they get fussy. Less regular babies, you try and put them on a routine and it doesn't work. You try and go to bed at 7 and they won't go to bed at 7 no matter how long you try and implement that routine. You try and eat at 12, well, one day they're not hungry till 2. So each day is a different day and getting them on a routine is really hard. Then we have energy. So High energy or low energy? High energy, you're highly active, squirmy, you want to run instead of walk. So it's really easy with kids to tell, especially babies. You can see a baby that's less energy, they're going to be less active, and they can stay in one spot for a long time. A highly active baby is going to be squirmy, they're going to want to move, and they're going to want you to change up what they're doing all the time. So first reactions. This is how you face a situation. So some babies are going to dive in and take part. They're going to be open to new activities. They're going to be willing to try new things. If you show them a new toy, or if you take the baby in a little floaty in the pool, some of them are going to love it, and they're going to splash, and they're going to laugh. But some are going to hold back, and they might start crying if you try and put them in the pool. And they might not want to do it, and so they're going to watch before they do it, and they're going to be less comfortable in new situations, and they're going to be less willing to try new things. Another example of this could be pictures with Santa. Some babies love it. They sit there to let the strange old man take a picture with them. And other babies, they just bawl and cry the whole time and they don't want to be there. So, differences. And then we have mood. So, that's just our regular emotion. So, typically, how you're going to react to a situation. Are you going to be cranky? Are you going to be cheerful? Are you going to be positive? Are you going to be negative? So, mood is one or two ways. Your positive emotions or your negative emotions. And so, which is that babies go to? So are they really easygoing or are they more negative? And you can tell this about even people. You can tell if someone's a negative thinking person or a positive thinking person whenever you start to get to know them. So all of this stuff, it carries through to our adulthood. So babies learn certain behaviors and they're rewarded. So all of these temperaments, you're born with it. You're born with being highly persistent. So you don't want to change an activity really quickly. You want to stick with the same one. So babies learn that when they do a good behavior, then they're rewarded. So say a baby's highly persistent and they're being really, really fussy and their parents are upset with them, they're going to learn that they're getting a negative reaction to what they just did. And this is more understood when you're a bit older, when we're going to talk about the 1 to 3 year olds. But if they're rewarded, they're going to keep doing it. So that's why you don't reward bad behavior. You reward the behavior you want to keep seeing. And then the behaviors that they do and that you discipline are the ones that they're going to avoid. And you need to be consistent with it. So you can't show happy emotions, especially with babies, when they're doing something wrong. So if a baby throws their food off their high chair on the floor and you're laughing and think it's funny, then the baby's going to think you're laughing and it's funny, and even they're like, oh, I can't believe I have to clean this up, they're going to want to do it again, and that's going to teach their brain that they can do it again. So you need to be consistent and make sure that rewards and disciplines are for the behaviors you want to see, because that's how all of that develops with us. So that's just parenting skills. And babies gradually develop emotions. So we're going to have some pictures here that shows you throughout the first year of their life when they develop what emotions. And like we talked about with intellectual development, how babies have sight and sound as their first two senses that they have, their emotions are also limited when they're first born. They're just quiet or they cry. That's all they do. So, the most obvious emotion for an infant is crying. We all know that. And the amount and the intensity of crying, it varies between the situation. So maybe if a baby's really hungry, he's going to cry a lot. And if he's fine, he's not going to cry at all. So a crying newborn, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to check for physical needs. Are they hungry? Are they tired? Do they need a diaper change? Physical needs. Make sure those are all met. If all of those are met, then you're going to look into comforting measures. So you're going to try cuddling up with the baby in a rocking chair, maybe move the baby to a new position, talk softly to the baby or sing, offer the baby a toy of interest or to distract them, or stroke the baby's back to give them comfort. Now remember earlier we talked about with the chimpanzees, the monkeys that were in that study, physical needs aren't all we have. So just because your baby's crying, like, I don't know what's wrong, they're not hungry, they're not tired, they don't have a dirty diaper. It's because the social emotional development is there too. They need to feel comforted. They need to feel nurtured in order to develop. So it's not just about meeting their physical needs. You need to interact with your baby and you need to develop an emotional bond with your baby. So check physical needs first and then move on to social and emotional things. because that could easily be the reason that they're crying. They just need to have that closeness. They just need some attention. Think about yourself sometimes when you're just upset. You've been alone all day, especially think of time like right now, we're in quarantine. When the loneliness sets in, you just want to be around someone. Now maybe you cry, maybe you get upset, or maybe you just like you have that aching feeling in your stomach, that loneliness. You just want to be around people. So that's kind of the feeling. Like we have our physical needs, we ate, we slept. It's not bad. We just need our comforting needs. We need our social emotional needs to be met. So that's kind of something that we can really relate to right now. So babies develop their own techniques for comforting themselves too, because when they're in their bed and as you get older, you need to have a technique that comforts you. And even as adults, we have a technique that comforts us. It's probably not the technique from when we were children, and if it is, that's fine. But if it's a different technique, then we use that. Like maybe you watch Netflix or YouTube, or you hang out with a friend, or you take a bubble bath. It depends on what calms you down and like when you're upset, what makes you feel better. Babies have that, and we carry that on throughout our lives. So one of the examples is thumb sucking, or sucking your fist, or sucking a pacifier, or having a blanket, or a soft toy, or sometimes babies will rock themselves in their crib too. If they're used to their parents rocking them, they learn the movement and kind of do it to themselves. So some of these carry on when we're infants, like thumb sucking or pacifiers, blankets, soft toys. Those are things that sometimes they carry on a little bit longer, especially like teddy bears and blankets. Those really go throughout our childhood, and a lot of people keep their blankets and their teddy bears for a long time. There's something that comforted you when you were a baby, and there's something that comforts you when you're older. And so a lot of you might know that too, like maybe until you're even a teenager, or you might even still have the teddy bear. I don't use it anymore, but I still have the teddy bear that was my favorite when I was a kid. It's in my closet. It's the only teddy bear that I've ever kept, and it's raggedy and it's gross, and I would never put it on display, but I still have it and I keep it, and I just think it's a cute little keepsake. And throughout a long time of my life when I was growing up, that was my favorite little comforting thing. And so you started as a baby and you do it throughout your lives, and I'm sure all of you can think of something that you also had to comfort yourself. So earlier I talked about colicky, and so this goes with our comforting, because babies who are colicky, you can't comfort them and they can't comfort themselves. And it's just a stage where a baby is extremely, extremely fussy, and it happens daily. So it'll usually happen between 6 p.m. and 12 a.m. And it'll start around when they're 6 weeks old. And it gets shorter and shorter, the period of when they're colicky and fussy, until it eventually ends. And when parents have babies who are colicky, they tend to get very frustrated because you can't comfort your baby. Your baby can't develop those techniques, and everything that you're doing also doesn't seem to work. Eventually something will, and sometimes they need to seek help or try a bunch of different techniques, but your baby is just really fussy and you need to find what works. And so that's the end of the spectrum where it's really, really hard. That's like our difficult babies. So here's our chart of emotional development. So we can see that we have pleasant emotions and we have unpleasant emotions. And so our first is month 1, 2, and a little bit into 3, we have distress for a negative emotion. It's very young babies express discomfort or unhappiness by crying. We know that. When babies need something when they're first born, they cry. And then we move into month 2, 3, 4. They start to show delight. So babies will start smiling whenever maybe their caregiver is smiling or laughing or talking to them, and they will show those smiles. And then they develop disgust. So that's around month 4, 5, 6. Babies begin to show dislike to things very quickly. So the same way they'll show you smiles when they like something, they show you disgust when they don't like it. Then month 7, 8, you have elation. So babies show high spirits with their whole body. So they're going to be moving their arms and their legs, and when they're laughing, they're moving their arms and their legs at the same time. It's the kind of like whole body happiness. It's a really cute stage. And then we have 7, 8. Also for negative, we have anger. So babies show their anger when they don't get their own way. And when you're older, babies show anger at objects as well as people. So maybe throwing blocks or hitting blocks. And so then we have month 10, 11, 12, and they start to show affection. So they show the affection to their caregivers and for maybe other people in their life. It comes a little bit later, or if you're someone who's around a lot, you might start getting a little bit of affection in 10, 11, 12. And then also in 10, 11, 12, we get fear. So babies begin to show fear of strangers, and it can start as early as 8 months. And so if you're not around a lot and the baby doesn't recognize you when they're older, in their first year of infancy, they're going to show that fear that they might not have shown in the beginning parts. So, social development starts happening in the first days of life. We respond to human voices. Then in 1 month, you stop crying when you're lifted or touched. Your face brightens with familiar faces. And then at 2 months, we smile and watch people. So as we go through our first year of infancy, we're having these social development milestones just like we had these emotional development milestones. So all of these positive emotions and all of these negative emotions happen within the first year. Now this is what happens in our social development. So then, month 3, we turn our head in response to a voice. We look for companionship. At 4 months, laughing out loud. Look for others for entertainment. At 5 months, interest in other family members. Cry when left alone and begin to babble. That's always a really cute stage when babies start to babble. 6 months, love company and attention, and they can play peekaboo at this stage. At 7 months, they prefer parents over other families or strangers, so this is when you're getting close to that fear developing. 8 months, prefer to be in a room with other people. They can crawl. They move from room to room looking for people. So months 9 and 10, they crawl after their parents. So if you walk away, they'll crawl after you. They want love and attention. They like being chased, and they like playing throwing games where they throw toys, but they want someone else to pick them up. They don't want to have to crawl after the toys. 11 and 12 months, it's when they're the most happy and friendly. They're sensitive to others' emotions. So this is when the perceptiveness of the emotions come in. So if you're stressed and angry and upset, your baby's really going to feel it at 11 and 12 months. So you want to make sure you're calm and happy as much as you can be with the baby. And even if you're faking emotions sometimes, so people can tell when you're faking emotions. And so I think babies can pick up on that sense as well. And they want to be the center of attention at 11 and 12 months. So if anything else is getting attention, they're going to try and bring the attention back to them. So that's everything on social and emotional development. And now what I want you to do is I want you to read the PDF that I uploaded called Social Emotional Development. And then you have a social emotional development assignment, which you're going to need this lesson as well as the reading in order to complete. And then you are going to create a presentation on the theories of attachment theory. So make sure if you have any questions, send me an email, shoot me a message on Teams, however you want to do it. I hope you have an amazing week, and we'll have another lesson again next week.